Okay, so from this particular slide, which we started the very first theory class, we have completed most of the things: impurities, then the boiler troubles, then external treatment and internal treatment. Now we are left with the domestic water treatment. So, how Nagpur, any municipal corporation, is treating water so that it can be made potable and supplied to the locality for like drinking purpose or um, like domestic use. So the domestic water treatment comprises of first step is screening. Now screening will be something like a huge what do you say, a huge mesh, wire mesh through which the water is allowed to pass, or a sieve where large holes are present. So what happens when water is allowed to pass through a welded mesh or a mesh, iron mesh or something like this, which has large holes? The plastic bags, thermocol, wooden logs, and sticks and all, like a number of large floating impurities are removed from the water. Okay, and then water is allowed to go into a sedimentation tank. So the second step is sedimentation. Now in sedimentation, water is allowed to stand still, which is not disturbed, and due to gravity, the suspended particles. Now suspended particles are large enough so that they settle down due to gravity. But there are still smaller and finer particles which do not settle due to gravity when they are allowed to stand still. So such particles are termed as colloidal particles. So after sedimentation, around 5 to 6 hours, water is allowed to stand still, and then the clarified water is then put for filtration. So the this is one, two, then the third step. Now third step comprises of adding certain coagulants so that the colloidal particles which are negatively charged will coalesce with this coagulant, and the colloidal particles can be removed or are removed. So after coagulation, then you have filtration. So why filtration? Because like your um, like suspend like these coagulated sludge which is forming or separating out, then that is completely removed by filtration. So there can be a slow sand gravity filter or a rapid pressure filter. Two types are there. So the purpose of filtration is it will remove these like the coagulant along with the colloidal particles, these which are forming, and many a times this process is little bit slow if the temperature of water is lesser. So that will help removing all the colloidal particles. Then next step is sterilization. So for sterilization, before going to sterilization, generally it is met with mechanical deaeration, uh, and then sterilization, the process of removing pathogenic bacteria, virus, and protozoas from water is termed as sterilization or disinfection. Okay, so these are the 5 steps. So the first step is sedimentation. Now, first is screening, of course, but that is just removing the larger blocks. So, like actual treatment, if you see, sedimentation is the first. So, process of removing relatively large particles by allowing the water stand still in a sedimentation tank is termed as sedimentation. Now, the principle involved is slow down the flow or the turbulence of water, because of which some particles which may sink due to gravity, because of the turbulence, they are held in the water, and so they can be removed by allowing it to stand still so that it settles gradually to the bottom. Accumulated sludge is removed periodically, so you need to remove the sludge periodically. The velocity with which a particle in water sinks due to gravity It will depend on the horizontal flow velocity of water, like somewhere it is, if this is the tank, then the inlet water and the outgoing water. The horizontal flow velocity of water will definitely govern the turbulence inside the water body in the sedimentation tank, right? Then the size and shape of particle, then specific gravity of particle, and the temperature of water. So these things will decide the speed with which the particle sinks to the bottom. Then sedimentation takes long time and requires large capacity settling tanks and do not ensure complete removal of suspended matter. This is the limitation of this particular process. Then, after sedimentation, the water is allowed to undergo a process called as coagulation. So, coagulation is a process in which coagulant is added in a specified quantity, and this coagulant it leads to formation of insoluble gelatinous flocculent precipitates which appear like flock, just like wool is seen or wool or cotton is seen. Sometimes something like that, circular flocks are formed, and they trap the fine suspended and fine colloidal particles. And because they coalesce, the colloidal particle coalesce on it, it becomes a larger flock and settles down. So here a diagrammatic representation is there. These are the negatively charged colloidal particles and do not come together or stick together. But when you add coagulant, mostly they are positively charged Fe and Al. So on the surface of this, or these positively charged particles, you will find all your negatively charged colloidal particles will go and stick together. Now, because they were separate, now they are coming closer, they become larger, and that is how a time reaches that the whole thing settles down along with the coagulant, the colloidal particles, and the water is clarified. Here the picture is clear. Here you can see water is not very clear. Hmm? The backside of this particular jar testing, this is a jar testing apparatus. So behind this particular jar, what is there you can't see because the water is not clear. So when you add here different quantities of coagulant are added in these, and we find that there is a vertical, like you can see these are the stirrers. So the stirrers are put on for some time initially, but then after a few minutes the stirrer is turned off so that the flock should form and flock should settle down due to gravity. And here you see that the flock is settling down and water is getting clarified. Okay, so this is a general process. Now, common coagulants. The coagulants used as are alum, ferrous sulfate, and sodium aluminate. This we have already seen. Al2SO4 thrice, FeSO4 7H2O, and NaAlO2. Now they provide positive ions Fe3 plus or FeAl3 plus, which neutralize the negative charge on the colloidal particles, and that is why they come close and form a larger particle. The gelatinous precipitates mainly contain aluminum hydroxide, ferrous and ferric hydroxide. Here, ferrous hydroxide is converted to ferric hydroxide by dissolved oxygen in water. Okay, so these are some of the things which has more surface area and positive charge. So, partially clarified water is filtered through the sand filters. Generally, slow sand gravity filter is used after coagulation. Now, what are the reactions? Now, we see that Al2SO4 thrice, which is alum, when put in water, leads to formation of twice AlOH thrice. Now, this is removed because this is a precipitate, gelatinous precipitate. But what it forms is H2SO4. So when you use this coagulant, it is termed as acidic coagulant because it produces acid. So if your water contains more of bicarbonate alkalinity, or if your water has alkalinity, bicarbonate alkalinity, you can use alum as coagulant. How? Al2SO4 thrice, will combine with calcium bicarbonate or react with calcium bicarbonate, forming AlOH thrice plus CaSO4 plus 6CO2. So what has happened in this case? Definitely calcium permanent hardness is forming, but your sulfuric acid is not formed here because that has neutralized the SO4 to my gas. So what you see here is if you use alum in alkaline water, then it is fine. If the water is not alkaline, then you can use a combination of alum and aluminum hydroxide. Okay, that we will see again. Next. Now, effect of pH on coagulation with common coagulants. Now, you consider sodium aluminate. Now, sodium aluminate in water produces aluminum hydroxide floc and sodium hydroxide. Now, when you use sodium aluminate, the water is rendered alkaline. Okay, so if the water is acidic in nature, then you should use sodium aluminate, or even if it is slightly acidic, you can use sodium aluminate. But if the water is already alkaline, you should not select sodium aluminate as a coagulant. This results in pH above 7. Aluminum hydroxide floc causes coagulation and sedimentation, whereas NaOH reacts with magnesium salts in water if the water contains magnesium hardness. So, if magnesium hardness is there, this particular NaOH will lead to formation of MgOH twice precipitate. So, that will precipitate out separately. Along with this will also be separating. Then the next coagulant is FeSO4 7H2O. Now ferrous sulfate, if you put in water, definitely it is going to form H2SO4. The reaction we have seen in lime soda process also. So this is also some coagulant which cannot be used for acidic water. If the water contains acid alkalinity like magnesium bicarbonate or calcium bicarbonate, then you can use ferrous sulfate. So ferrous sulfate will form ferrous hydroxide and MgSO4 and CO2. This FeOH twice further reacts with O2 and H2O, forming FeOH thrice. Okay, so what we see, out of three coagulants, two give formation of acid and one gives formation of an base or alkali. So if your water is acidic in nature, you will choose sodium aluminate. If your water sample is alkaline in nature, you can use alum or ferrous sulfate. If the water is neutral, then you have to use a combination of Al2SO4 uh, thrice plus NaAlO2, okay, or FeSO4 plus NaAlO2. So a combination proper proportion if it is used, the pH of water will not change and it will remain neutral. Okay, then coming to sterilization or disinfection. Now, best way household method of sterilization of water is boiling. So generally in rainy season, drinking water is boiled to sterilize it. So it is useful for small quantities of water only, like household only. For proper disinfection, water should be boiled vigorously for 20 to 25 minutes and then immediately it should be covered by adding bleaching powder. Now, this is a chemical treatment where chemical like bleaching powder is used. Okay. Now, by using bleaching powder, that is CaO, Cl2, um, you get disinfect. Like this reaction we have already seen in the free chlorine experiment, right? Which experiment we have seen these reactions?
Pre-chlorination
And it chlorination only.
Chlorination.
experiment for
Free chlorine determination. Okay, during free chlorine determination, we have used or we have seen this reaction where bleaching powder, which is a cheaper solid material, that can be added to water. It produces calcium hydroxide and chlorine gas. Now, this chlorine gas with water forms HCl and HOCl, and germs plus HOCl. You find that this hypochlorous acid can attack the cell wall and they are killed. Apart from that, hypochlorous acid also gives nascent oxygen and HCl. The nascent oxygen will definitely oxidize the organic compounds present in water as well as the living organisms present in water. The drawbacks are it introduces calcium in water, thereby increasing its hardness. Bleaching powder deteriorates during storage. So, if large bags and sacks of bleaching powder are stored for 6 months or for a year, it gets deteriorated. Excess calcium CaOCl2, that is bleaching powder, gives bad taste and odor to treated water. That is because of the chlorine gas formed in excess.
Ma'am, HOCl is not harmful for us.
HOCl is harmful for health. Hypochlorous acid, I told you it ruptures the cell wall. So whether it
Yes,
is
sir.
bacterial cell or human cell, any type of cell. So human cell contains so many type of cells in the whole body, right? So
Yes, so ma'am, the water is not drinkable or what?
due to hypochlorous acid, no, it won't be stable, right? It will immediately lead to formation of nascent oxygen. And if there are germs, by the time it gives nascent oxygen formation, it may react with germs also,
Okay,
and that is
ma'am.
how the germs are removed. And
Okay.
this won't be there, na, right? Even this and this won't be stable for a long time. Within fraction of seconds, they will be reacting and giving you nascent oxygen. Nascent oxygen, yes, this is also not stable.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So in the whole process, what is stable? Calcium hydroxide will be there, and excess free chlorine gas may be there as dissolved gas.
Yes, okay, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Direct chlorination. Then direct chlorination. Now instead of using bleaching powder, you can use directly chlorine gas. Now this process become costly. That's all. Chlorine, either gaseous or in concentrated solution form, is used for sterilization. Produces hypochlorous acid, which is a powerful germicide. So again, same reaction, and they are killed. So this will also give nascent oxygen, and nascent oxygen instead of this, mostly nascent oxygen. Advantages: economical, requires little space for storage, stable, does not deteriorate on storage, that is chlorine gas, and does not introduce calcium into it. Whereas disadvantages are excess chlorine produces unpleasant taste and odor, excess produces irritation on mucous membrane, and no effect uh, not effective at higher pH. At higher pH will not work. Now, free chlorine, part of residual chlorine that does not bound to any reactant in water. Treated water should not have more than zero point 0.1 or zero point 0.2 ppm free chlorine. Combined chlorine bonded with chemicals like nitrate. So that is this is the free chlorine, and it should be less than zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2 ppm. Then chloramine, the first was boiling, second is chlorination. Now, sterilization by chlorination is of three types. One is use of bleaching powder, second one is use of chlorine gas, and now third one is use of chloramine. Now, how chloramine is produced or performed? Chloramine is obtained by treating chlorine gas with ammonia in a ratio of 2 is to 1. 2 is to 1 when you treat, you will get either monochloramine or dichloramine also. You may get, if you are using 2 is to 1, so you may get dichloramine also. So it is more lasting than chlorine alone. Hence, it is better disinfectant. Uh, ClNH2 plus This is H2O gives HOCl plus NH3. Okay, so this is how you are getting again ammonia. Now, one of the drawback of this is this ammonia, if there is copper plumbing or copper rivets or copper joints are there, ammonia tend to attack copper metal, and all those places where rivets, bends, joints, and plumbing of copper is there, that will get corroded. Okay, excess does not produce irritating odor. Now, the most important thing is when you use, like this is the preparation of chloramine, but actually, when you put chloramine in water, this is the chloramine, monochloramine. When put in water H2O, it forms HOCl plus ammonia. So here you will see that there is no chlorine formation, chlorine gas, Cl2 gas is not there. So even if you put excess of chloramine, chlorine gas will not be forming. So unpleasant taste and odor will not be there. It imparts good taste to treated water. Okay, then so first was boiling, second is chlorination, chlorination by bleaching powder, chlorination by chlorine gas, then using chloramines. Then the third one is ozonization. Now, ozonization is advanced oxidation process, AOP. Now, ozone is used. Now, ozone, you know that it is quite expensive. So, the process can be subjected for only small quantities or specific water where like you don't have, you can't use like chloramine or chlorine gas or bleaching powder. Then you can choose ozonization. Now, ozone is produced by passing silent electrical discharge through cold and dry oxygen. So, when you pass electric discharge through oxygen gas at a low temperature, you get formation of O3. So, thrice O2 gives twice O3. The ozone is highly unstable and breaks down, liberating nascent oxygen. Nascent oxygen at um, a powerful oxidizing agent which can kill all the bacteria that we know very well. That nascent oxygen, how powerful it is. So O3 will give formation of O2 plus nascent oxygen O. Okay, so that is always written in square bracket because of its high reactivity. Then process. Ozone is passed through water in a sterilizing tank. Disinfected water is removed from the top. Like this is the tank through which the water is removed. So contact period is about 10 to 15 minutes and dose is or there will be a chamber of ozone and through which water is allowed to trickle down in that ozone chamber, and the lower part will be water which will be removed continuously. So a continuous process, that type of thing can be there. Then advantages. Ozone sterilizes, bleaches, deodorizes, decolorizes, deodorizes water and rapidly reacts with bacteria, virus and protozoa over a wide pH range. So there is no pH range limitation and is efficient for organic degradation and inorganics removal. No chemicals are added, hence excess of ozone in water is not harmful as it decomposes to give something which is good, that is oxygen. Stronger germicidal properties than chlorination. Uh, so it has a stronger germicidal activity, properties, activity should be there than chlorination. Ozone improves the taste of water. Highly potable water is thus sterilized with ozone. Then disadvantages. Relatively high equipment cost requires large amount of energy. Qualified professionals required for design and system maintenance. Ozone being corrosive agent corrodes stainless steel, cast iron, copper, rubber and ebonite. Ebonite, ebonite is a sulfur vulcanized rubber with 32% sulfur in it. The potential fire hazard and toxicity associated with ozone generation. So these are some of the disadvantages. Now the very last part of the thing, like if you have some large quantity of water for sterilization, how will you decide? Now after looking into these many process, like there can be one more process, that is sterilization by using ultraviolet radiation. So mostly swimming pool water, what is done in the swimming pool water, like a pipe will be there through which the water will be flowing, and there will be an UV lamp at the top, and the flow rate is slow. So continuously water passes through there, and there will be a glass portion, and UV lamp will keep, it will pass through the glass. So it will keep sterilizing water continuously, and the waters after passing through the UV lamp radiation, or the part which is irradiated with UV lamp, will be again going into the swimming pool water. Okay. Now breakpoint chlorination is an important part, very small portion. But this, what is breakpoint or significance of breakpoint chlorination? Yeah, to know the quantity of chlorine to be added or chlorinating agent to be added, optimum quantity to be added to a large volume of water. How to know that? Okay, so to find out how much quantity of your chlorinating agent should be added to a large quantity of water, at what rate it should be added, you perform an experiment called as breakpoint chlorination. Now, what is breakpoint chlorination? Breakpoint chlorination is defined as a precisely controlled process. You can again read, a precisely controlled process in which sufficient amount of chlorine or chlorinating agent is added to oxidize all the organic matter, leaving behind slight excess of free chlorine. This definition, if asked, should be written as it is. So what do you understand by precisely controlled? Precisely controlled means not more, not less. It has to be very precise. Okay, what has to be very precise? The quantity of chlorinating agent. A precisely controlled process in which sufficient amount of chlorine is added to oxidize all the organic matter, leaving behind a slight excess of free chlorine. So this is the definition. So what we understand is, now you are supposed to perform an experiment so that you will, now you know that how to determine the residual chlorine left behind, right? So that is the slight excess of free chlorine you can find out. So chlorination to such an extent that not only all the pathogenic bacteria but also the organic matter, reducing impurities, coloring matter, and odors from water are oxidized, leaving a slight excess of free chlorine in the water, which has further disinfecting action. Okay, so like you add a calculated quantity of chlorinating agent so that all these impurities, pathogenic bacteria, organic matter, reducing impurities, coloring matter, and odors, everything is oxidized, and still a little of free chlorine is remaining in the water. So such quantity of chlorinating agent should be added to water. Now this will depend on what is the load of impurities in the raw water. So definitely you have to first find out the load or the quantity of chlorinating agent. So what we will do, if you are treating water from say some Sardar Sarovar Dam or any catchment area. Okay, go and collect water from there, because water is used by municipality from that area, uh, hydropower plant area, the catchment area, and then you prepare say 20 to 25 1 liter beakers. Okay? You take, like you took here we took here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 6 beaker of 1 liter capacity for this jar testing apparatus. So similarly, if you take around 25 beakers of 1 liter capacity and fill 1 liter of your raw water that has to be sterilized, okay, and then you go on adding an increasing dose of chlorinating agent, amount of chlorine added. Chlorine added means we are say putting bleaching powder. Okay, so increasing dose of chlorinating agent or bleaching powder. So in the first one you don't add anything. In the second one you add say 10 grams, then 20 gram, 30 gram, 40, 50, 60 like this. In 1 liter you add. Are you getting? Such type of beakers, and 1 liter of water is taken, raw water. Okay, and then what you see when you add a different quantity of chlorinating agent into it, you will find that you will stir it nicely, and after stirring, then within 5 minutes you just go for checking the quantity of residual chlorine remaining behind. How to find out that? How will you find out the residual chlorine present in this particular water sample? The first one in which 10 grams of bleaching powder was added. Have we performed the determination of free chlorine experiment?
Yes, ma'am. By that only.
Okay, so we have performed free chlorine determination. How we did that? We took water sample, and to that you add Ki solution, and you add because the chlorine is less, you add starch there itself. Titrate with hypo solution, sodium thiosulfate solution isometrically. So same thing is done here. Like you took say 25 beakers. In each beaker, 1 liter of water is taken, and then you are adding in the first beaker. You don't add any chlorinating agent. The second one you start putting 10 grams in 1 liter, 20 grams per liter, 30 grams per liter, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And in each of them, like you are 24 students in the group, every student will be responsible for one such beaker. So after putting, stirring, and within 5 minutes or 10 minutes of like let the things react together and take out some 20 ml from this and perform the free chlorine determination. What you will find, roll number 1, 2, 3 will not see any chlorine, residual chlorine present in their beaker. But further, the roll number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they will report that this is the quantity, the fourth beaker. The fifth beaker will show some this quantity. Sixth beaker will show some this quantity. Seventh beaker will show this quantity. And the 10th beaker may be showing the maximum. Roll number 10 will report, Madam, I am getting like the volume of hypo required is the maximum by 10, roll number 10. 10 means the 10th beaker. Then 11 will say, no, no, it is lesser, still lesser, still lesser, still lesser. That is how these 24 beakers which were taken and different increasing dose of chlorinating agent added, you get when you plot this on the blackboard, every student will come and put their point here. And when at the end of the practical you join all these, you get something like this. Now it is interpreted that this zone where although you started adding chlorinating agent, this zone is not showing any residual chlorine. So where this chlorine has gone? So if this chlorine has gone in the oxidation of reducing compounds. So that is the stage 1. So the chlorine has gone and you don't get any presence of free chlorine. So till roll number 4, they are very sad because they didn't get any titer value. Okay, but then after roll number 4, like 5 onwards, they are getting an increasing trend. So they got some value, and everyone is getting a different value. And roll number 10 says that mine titer value is the maximum. So on calculation, he found that the residual chlorine is highest here. Now, why the residual chlorine is going on increasing? because when the chlorine is added, there is some organic compounds there, right? So this chlorine which is going in the water is forming chloro-organic compounds or chloramines. Okay, so these chloramines and chloro-organic compounds, they require large quantity of nascent oxygen for their oxidation. Chlorophenol especially. Okay, so it is the chlorophenols which will be at the top. The rest all the compounds. Now, some compounds may get oxidized in between. Okay, some class of compound which are not phenolic, so they may oxidize, and the trend may be seen something like going like this, but again coming like this. So in this part, it got sterilized, that got oxidized, and the chlorophenols are the ones which will be at the end require highest energy or highest concentration of nascent oxygen for its oxidation, strongest bonds. So because of which the chlorophenols will be the one which will remain unoxidized till this point. And from this point, the chlorophenolic compounds will start getting oxidized, or it will undergo destruction. So this part from point C to D is the destruction of chloro-organic compounds or chloramines. And then after D point, the D point is termed as breakpoint chlorination or the breakpoint. And after this point, what all quantity of chlorinating dose is added, that is remaining as it is in water and showing that much of residual chlorine. So rule number say 15 onwards, they are getting all increasing trend. What all increasing quantities of chlorinating agent is added, that is going increasing. Okay, so the same thing is written here in book language. Should I read this? Stage 1. No residual chlorine in water as the added chlorine is used in oxidizing the reducing compounds in water. Part A to B of the graph. So this A and to this B of the graph is this. Then stage 2 is formation of organic, chloro-organic compounds and chloramines takes place. Chloramines act as chlorine reserve and contribute to an increase in residual chlorine to a maximum level. So B to C is this part, stage 2. Stage 3 is destruction of chloro-organic compounds. The amount of residual chlorine decreases as the oxidation of chloramines and chloro-organic compounds take place and reaches a minimum point D in the graph. This point is termed as break point. At this point, water is completely free from all kind of impurities and is of potable water quality. Addition of chlorine until this point is termed as breakpoint chlorination. Okay, so this breakpoint. So according to this, if you add this much quantity, like a slight excess has to be there, right? To ensure that if something is added by you, if you add something, this part will oxidize that small quantity of impurity added. So the breakpoint from this point, you can say that if this is the excess chlorine, this from here to here, that means this should be the dose to be added for 1 liter. If this is the dose to be added for 1 liter, then you can calculate for 1 million liters or 1 lakh liters, whatever be the quantity of water. Now you can add the chlorinating agent in this proportion, right? So a slight excess has to be there. Stage 4, added chlorine is equal to the available chlorine and the graph shows an increase in level of residual chlorine. Part D to E. So part D to A, you don't have to add this much chlorinating agent. This much large excess is not required. What is that will be unnecessarily putting. So just ensure that you are putting not this quantity but this quantity. Okay. Advantages of breakpoint chlorination. It removes all compounds that impart color, bad odor and unpleasant taste to water. It destroys all organic matter, dissolved ammonia, and microorganisms in water and prevents algae, weeds, and growth of algae and weeds. It destroys all the disease producing bacteria also. Okay, so this is how. What is breakpoint chlorination? It's an experiment to find out the optimum quantity of chlorinating agent which will oxidize all the organic matter and ensure like a little excess is remaining behind. Okay, so the book definition or the what you say definition for breakpoint chlorination is a precisely controlled process in which just should be here, just sufficient amount of chlorine is added to oxidize all the organic matter, leaving behind a slight excess of free chlorine. Okay, then if this slight excess is very much in excess, then you can remove a little excess part. Removal of excess chlorine from drinking water after chlorination can be performed by passing through activated carbon or treating it with SO2 gas so that it leads to formation of H2, SO4 and twice HCl. So these two acids will be forming, or treating the water with sodium sulfite. So that will lead to formation of sodium sulfate plus HCl. Okay, so this is how chlorine can be removed. Then I think this numerical regarding the sediment and sludge calculation we have already done. Now there is next numerical. Every one of you should go for calculating this. Okay. How many of you are doing calculation?
Yes, ma'am.
Only one student is answering.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Calculating.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Many are there. Now you note down this numerical and try to solve this. Calculate the amount of lime 80% pure and soda 90% pure needed for softening 50,000 liters of water utilizing a coagulant, that is ferrous sulfate, at the rate of 100 milligrams per liter. The water shows following impurities on analysis.
Ma'am, can you show the previous slide?
Previous one, that is important. This one or this one? This one?
Yes, ma'am. This is done.
Done. Okay. This we have solved. Okay. This is the most complicated numerical comprising of everything in it. Okay. So this is the, I told you that day if I cover ferrous sulfate and calcium and magnesium ionic concentration given, then my portion of water treatment will get over. So we will quickly discuss because I have just added this numerical. I don't have solution for this with me in this, but we can definitely discuss how to consider these. Now 120 milligrams per liter of calcium carbonate is mentioned. Now in a numerical, if calcium carbonate, now we all know that calcium carbonate is insoluble. But then if the numerical says that calcium carbonate is there, what you will do? Will you not consider this? You should not actually, because this is the precipitate, it is not there. But you have to consider this as the calcium temporary hardness, and you will write this as 120 only. The multiplication factor will be 100 by 100, that is 1. Okay, for this, the multiplication factor will be 100 by 100, that is 1. So in the CaCO3 equivalents, you will get 120 ppm of CaCO3 equivalents. But you have to consider this as if this is calcium bicarbonate. And you will write the lime and soda required for calcium bicarbonate. Okay, in the table. Should I go back and bring a table from there? इसमें नहीं है. Wait a minute. We'll bring the table from somewhere. Long back we solved lime soda numerical. Okay, here is one. We'll take this only. So what you should be doing now? Here will be your CaCO3, right? And that is 120. So this will be 100 by 100. So CaCO3 equivalents will be 120. Now in the lime used column, it should be like if you have calcium bicarbonate, is it removed by lime? Yes. One equivalent of calcium bicarbonate requires one equivalent of lime. So 120 should be written here and there should be nothing written over here. Then magnesium carbonate. So how much is calcium? This is 42. So this will be having a multiplication factor of 100 by, now
84.
carbonate is 60 plus 24. This is 60, right? Plus 24, that will be 84, right? So how much should come here? That you see. So this will be CaCO3 equivalent. Now magnesium temporary requires 2 into
Twice.
and here you can put some dash and this will not require anything, so you will write here nil. You can write here also nil. Soda. Then what is remaining? I think you are having here this particular impurity, magnesium nitrate. So you write here magnesium nitrate and what is the coagulant used? That is, this is 148. So this becomes magnesium nitrate is I think 148 only 100. Yes,
Mass is itself 148.
148. Okay, so this will be 100 and this will be 50, I think. No, 42 and 84.
Yes, ma'am, 50.
Yes, ma'am.
1 and this will be 2, so this will be 50. Right? So what has happened? So this is 2 into 50. Two into 50. And here it will be, what is this? Magnesium nitrate is magnesium permanent hardness, Mg NO3 twice. Okay, so that will require lime for its removal, so and incorporate calcium permanent hardness, so it will require soda for its removal. Then instead of here we write the coagulant here itself. What is that? FeSO4. So So FeSO4 at what rate? At the rate of 100 milligrams per liter is used. So we write 100 here. What is the multiplication factor for FeSO4? Molecular weight is? How much is the molecular weight? Now you tell me.
148.
148 or 178? This is 7H2O.
One 52.
वन फिफ्टी टू नहीं है, 278 है फेरस सल्फेट.
Yes, ma'am. 278.
Yes, ma'am, that's 7H2.
278. Okay, so by that relation, do the calculation and tell me this so that the numerical gets completed here. Hundred by 278.
Ma'am, it comes at approx 36.
35.9.
5.97.
Okay, 35.9 is the answer here. So what is Fe? Ferrous sulfate coagulant requires lime for its removal, equal equivalents. At the same time, it incorporates calcium permanent hardness. So it is 35.97. Yeah, one more decimal you take better so that you arrive to the final answer correct. Okay, now you can write here how much is the soda used. That will be 135.97 and this will be 120, 100, 100. So that is 320, 320 plus this. So 355.97. The rest you know how to write the lime and soda part. Okay, equations you know. If there is impurity is given, if the impurities are given here, it's fine. Purity factor, the lime soda formulas you write, the purity factor you write, the number of liters, and get the quantities of lime and soda used for softening of such water. Okay. Then this type of numerical we had not solved. Calculate the quantity. This is the last numerical. I just extend the class by 5 minutes. Calculate the quantities of lime and soda used. Now it is saying used or that were used during cold softening of 1,25,000 liters of water using 8.2 milligrams per liter or ppm of sodium aluminate as coagulant and on the basis of the following data. So the following data is given, analysis of raw water is given and analysis of treated water is given. So whenever such analysis of treated water is given, you will be asked to calculate what was the quantity of soda and lime used during the softening. That is after the softening, this much is the concentration of hydroxide and carbonate. So here the analysis is given in ionic form, raw water analysis. Now when raw water analysis is given in ionic form, the calcium ion, it has to be considered as permanent hardness. Now in the previous numerical, what we saw, if calcium carbonate, which is a generally a precipitate and not expressed generally in a numerical, we consider it to be a temporary hardness of calcium. And if it is expressed in the ionic form directly as Ca2 plus, you will consider this as the calcium permanent hardness and accordingly you will write the quantities here. So I don't have these things here. One of you please calculate these values. Okay. So magnesium will be again considered as magnesium permanent hardness and therefore it will be written in both the things, whereas calcium will be written only for soda calculation. Okay. Then dissolved carbon dioxide, it is using lime only, so the equivalents will be written here only. So I'll just write in this particular case where it will be used and where it will not be used. So we will write here minus and here plus. Here the equivalents will be plus, here also it will be plus. Dissolved oxygen, here it will be plus, here it won't be anything. It will be nil. Here also, like instead of writing minus, don't write minus because minus means you have to deduct. So you don't have to deduct it. Now bicarbonate ion, it requires one equivalent of hydroxide. So plus will come here, and now here it will come minus. So you have to subtract from soda these many equivalents of bicarbonate. Then carbonate. So carbonate is there in the treated water. So this carbonate in treated water is coming from the soda used in excess. So here it will be plus. Hydroxide is there in the treated water. That means more of calcium hydroxide was added. So it will be plus here. If more of calcium was coming in the water through your chemicals, that means soda is also coming to remove it. Then sodium aluminate, NaAlO2. Now NaAlO2 is deducted from both lime as well as soda both, because what are the reaction? NaAlO2 plus water leads to formation of NaOH, and since it leads to formation of NaOH, what you see here is this quantity NaOH. This hydroxide is not containing any calcium with it, which generally lime is containing. So that hydroxide removes one of the impurities here, and therefore you have to deduct it from here. Now since this is deducted from here, this is deducted from here also. So if bicarbonate impurity is there, now one of you tell me what are the values I asked you to calculate.
Ma'am, 237.5 is the first one.
Yeah. You have another class now? It will be lunch break, right?
Yes, ma'am.
237.5.
0.5.
Four.
311.4. Ma'am, 4.1.
4.1. Okay. And sodium aluminate?
Is 5.
5. Okay. So accordingly, you can write this and complete this. And then the lime and soda used formulas are there that you can use, and that completes the whole chapter. So with this, I'd say get the complete formula and get the values for lime and soda used. Okay. So if anyone has any doubt, you can discuss it
Ma'am,
on. Yes.
ma'am, in chlorination breakpoint, I am having doubt, ma'am, in that, ma'am.
चले हम पीछे.
Yes, ma'am.
बोलिए.
Yes, ma'am. This, ma'am. Ma'am, in formation of chloro-organic compounds and chloramines, Residual of chlorine decreases, ma'am. No, I think, ma'am, it should decrease.
Pardon?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, in
Pardon?
formation of chloro-organic compounds and chloramines, residual chlorine decreases, ma'am. I think so, ma'am.
ये
Because
formation of
chlorine will be used up, ma'am, in
organic
forming
compounds,
chloro-organic compounds.
chloramines. नहीं, ये क्या होता है, जैसे आपका क्लोरीनेटिंग डोज बढ़ते जा रहा है, you have different
Yes, ma'am.
class of organic compounds. If you classify, you have amines, you have esters, you have lipids, you have carbohydrates, number of impurities can be there, right? So what
Yes,
is
ma'am.
said, just a minute, excuse me, I'll mute my yes, Vikesh, we can roll number 83. Some doubt was there regarding formation. Are you there? Roll number 83?
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ, बोलिए. Formation of chloro-organic compounds and chloramines. इसमें chlorine content बढ़ते जाएगा. तो there are number of different class of compounds. Okay. Some organic compounds are oxidized at a lower concentration of chlorine. तो ये जो formation होता है ये बढ़ते जाएगा फ्री क्लोरीन का कंटेंट जब तक आपका क्लोरोफिनॉल्स फॉर्म नहीं होते, because they require highest concentration for their breakdown. So different compounds will require different quantity. और ये single stroke में ऐसा आएगा ऐसा भी नहीं है. You may get something like this, then like this, then going up. So at
Ma'am.
this point, compound which get oxidized with lesser quantity are forming. Yes, बोलिए.
मैम ये मैम फॉर्म हो रहा है ना मैम क्लोरो ऑर्गेनिक कंपाउंड्स ये फॉर्म हो रहे हैं तो मैम क्लोरीन तो यूज हो रहा है ना तो फिर क्लोरीन बच कैसे रहा है
तब क्लोरीन बचता है, वो फॉर्म नहीं होता है. जैसे
दी आर नॉट फॉर्मिंग
क्लोरोफिनॉल्स है, तो क्लोरोफिनॉल्स को फॉर्म करने के लिए जितना क्लोरीन का कॉन्सेंट्रेशन चाहिए तब तक
Yes,
वो
ma'am.
आपका बढ़ते हुए ही दिखाएगा, क्लोरीन पानी में ज्यादा ही दिखाएगा. लेकिन
तब
एक
तक बन
टाइम
नहीं पाएगा मैम ये
आएगा कि जब तक क्लोरीन का कॉन्सेंट्रेशन इतना ज्यादा नहीं होता तब तक वो क्लोरोफिनॉल बन ही नहीं पाएगा. जब इतना ज्यादा
अच्छा
कॉन्सेंट्रेशन क्लोरीन का रहेगा तब वो क्लोरोफिनॉल बनेगा. जब वो क्लोरोफिनॉल
ओके
बनेगा तभी से वो फिर कम होना शुरू करेगा. अब ऐसा नहीं है कि
ओके
बाकी चीजें उसके इंटरमीडिएट में ब्रेक डाउन नहीं हो सकते. कुछ कंपाउंड्स
यस
बहुत जल्दी ऑक्सीडाइज हो जाते हैं तो उनको
यस मैम
इतना क्लोरीन बढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. तो ये ऐसा स्ट्रेट लाइन नहीं रहेगा एक्चुअल में. जब आप करोगे एक्सपेरिमेंट तो ये ऐसे होते होते बढ़ते जाएगा. जो सबसे ज्यादा टॉप पे गया क्लोरीन और फिर नीचे आया दैट इज द फिनोलिक कंपाउंड्स और द क्लास ऑफ फिनॉल्स, डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ फिनोलिक कंपाउंड्स. यानी एक पर्टिकुलर क्लास होता है
यस
आपका ऑर्गेनिक कंपाउंड्स का. ठीक है.
ओके यस मैम मैम इन दिस स्टेज 3 हम दीज आर फॉर्मिंग में
फ्री क्लोरीन बढ़ते जा रहा है, जो वीकर कंपाउंड्स है वो जल्दी जल्दी फॉर्म होके ब्रेक डाउन भी हो रहे हैं, और जो फिनोलिक कंपाउंड्स है उनको फॉर्म करके ब्रेक डाउन होने के लिए क्लोरीन का कॉन्सेंट्रेशन बहुत ज्यादा चाहिए, और जब तक वो नहीं हो जाते
यस मैम,
तब
समझ
तक
गया मैम।
जाते ही जाएंगे ना। ये तो 24 बच्चे हो आप बैच में, तो सबको हमने 10-10 ग्राम ज्यादा करके दे दिया है, सबने अपने इतने इसमें डाल दिया और ये डिटरमिन किया है। तो ग्राफ विल बी एक्चुअली समथिंग लाइक दिस, ऐसे ऐसे फिर यहाँ जाएगा। तो यहाँ पे जब इतना ज्यादा क्लोरीन का कॉन्सेंट्रेशन रहेगा तभी आपका क्लोरोफिनॉल बनेगा और वो ब्रेक डाउन होगा, ऑक्सीडाइज होगा। ठीक है,
ओके
हाई
Okay, ma'am.
कॉन्सेंट्रेशन क्लोरीन कैन ओनली ब्रेक डाउन द फिनोलिक कंपाउंड। सबसे ज्यादा फिनोलिक कंपाउंड्स को लगता है, बाकी सब उसके पहले ही ऑक्सीडाइज हो जाएंगे। ठीक है, चले
Okay.
फिर।
Ma'am, in destruction of chloroorganic compound, these will not release ma'am chlorine ma'am.
डिस्ट्रक्शन में वो
Ma'am?
डिस्ट्रक्शन हो रहा है,
क्लोरीन रिलीज होगा या नहीं?
क्लोरीन रिलीज नहीं हो रहा है, कंज्यूम हो रहा है, इसलिए वो क्लोरीन कम हो रहा है।
ओके मैम,
ठीक है, क्लोरीन
Okay, ma'am.
कंज्यूम हो गया
ठीक।
इसमें उसको डिस्ट्रॉय करने में, बॉन्ड ब्रेक करने में, नेसेंट ऑक्सीजन। ठीक है,
यस मैम,
ओके,
ठीक है
चलिए
मैम।
फिर। ओके, तो ये जो हमारा टॉपिक हुआ है अभी, फ्रॉम मंडे आई विल स्टार्ट विद रिफ्रैक्टरीज। ओके, प्रैक्टिकल का टेस्ट, प्रैक्टिकल का सब अलग रहेगा। आपका थियरी मंडे से रिफ्रैक्टरी स्टार्ट होगा, उसके बाद एड्सॉर्प्शन एंड काइनेटिक्स। तो देयर विल बी अ टेस्ट ऑन द पोर्शन कवर्ड अप टू 24th ऑफ जनवरी। 24th तक थियरी में जितना भी पोर्शन कवर होगा उसके ऊपर एक 10 मार्क का टेस्ट रहेगा 24th फरवरी को, जनवरी को। ओके, आई अनाउंस दिस जब सारे बच्चे क्लास में रहेंगे तब फिर से एक बार अनाउंस करेंगे।
Test will be MCQ.
When we will have class now, we have a class on 17th morning 11 a.m. and we will start with refractories. ठीक है,
Ma'am, on
So the next-
17th we have that MCQ test of the practical.
वो तो शाम को है ना, नहीं 18th को बताया है मैंने।
Okay.
19.
Yes, ma'am. 18th.
17th को आपको आपके फाइल्स सबमिट करने हैं, PDF और 4 एक्सपेरिमेंट, और 18th को आपका MCQ टेस्ट रहेगा शाम को 6 से 6:20 पर, और 19th से आपका वाइवा शुरू हो जाएगा रेस्पेक्टिव बैच के टाइमिंग में। रेस्पेक्टिव बैच शुड बी रेडी। आप वैसे भी आपको 2 घंटे का टाइम दिया है केमिस्ट्री प्रैक्टिकल के लिए। एट अ टाइम 2 स्टूडेंट्स विल बी अलाउड, और 3 स्टूडेंट्स 15-15 मिनट पे 2 या 3 बच्चों का वाइवा हो जाएगा। दैट विल बी ऑन प्रैक्टिकल। आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट थियरी। थियरी रहेगी मंडे को मॉर्निंग में 11 बजे। सो वी विल बी मीटिंग। तो अगर आपको कुछ डाउट्स आते